Hello, hello. Welcome to Road to Millions Day 3. So today we're talking about scaling from 500K to a million. We're talking about stacking monthly recurring revenue, closing down my BAA signature offer when it was when it was making the most money, a launch for Magic Mind after the mastermind started that failed, and then how I turned it around to create $70,000. We're talking about evergreen offers, what it means to sell a mastermind, triggers and wounds within a mentorship container, as well as shifting from selling just me and selling one-on-one to selling one to many and building out the movement and the legacy. So where we ended last time was when I had launched BAA, I had gone through the trials of learning to launch it, selling the offer initially, and then it had taken off. So after that period of time, it was doing really well for about a year or so. And then there was another dip in my business when I realized that I was boxing myself in with one signature offer. I wasn't allowing myself to expand in the way that I desired. And so this was just around 2022. I had hit $500,000 total revenue in my business. I'd started dwindling down my one-on-one. So I would be selling BAA. I'd have a couple of one-on-one clients. And at this point, I felt the pull to launch a mastermind. So at this point, I had gotten really good at investing in myself through masterminds. I remember the first mastermind I had ever joined, I wanted to play in the energy of it. I wasn't sure if exactly if it was for me, but I remember just submitting an application and just telling myself that I'd figure it out if I just gotten accepted. And I didn't tell anyone about it. I didn't plan for it financially. It was if you get accepted, you submit $20,000 paid in full to the coach so that you're in, right? And you have 24 hours to do that, or else your spot gets removed. So at this point in my business, I didn't have that cash at the time. This was back when I had just made around my first multi six figures. A lot of my money was going into like reinvesting in coaching and support. I was starting to hire support for my team. A lot of money was going into subscriptions. I was also learning how to build up a reserve, which is what I would need later on when I got rid of BAA, and really learning to be more financially literate with navigating my money. But at the same time, like that was something that I wanted to do. And so I got accepted and I found a way to pay $20,000 in full. I borrowed a bit of the money. I spent essentially like what I had in cash and I went all in. And this is a really big theme for me, deciding to go in over and over and over, all in at every single new level. I had never, I had never invested more than, I think at that time, yeah, I think it was like 5K and then 7K into a one-on-one business mentor. And at that point, it changed everything for me. Mentorship works because when you're getting the support that you need from an aligned person who's already been where you're at, every single time the transformation is in the transaction. So within a couple of weeks of making that decision, I paid the 20K in full. The mastermind hadn't even started yet. I think it was like 3 months in advance. I was celebrating a 30K day. So this was a couple weeks after I paid $20,000 in full. I had a $30,000 cash day. So I'd made like 30K months up until this point, but that day I had three one-on-one clients say yes and pay within 24 hours. And it was 10K each. That's how much my one-on-ones were at that time. They're like double that now, but $10,000 at that time was like, I think I'd actually just raised the price. I think it was like 7K or 8K, and I just raised it to 10K. And I think I opened up three spots. The three spots got filled. It was pay in full, and they paid in full, and they all actually paid within the same day. So I had a 30K cash day. when you're investing in yourself, you are entering a mentorship relationship, right? Like someone who's quite literally signing a contract to hold you on the best days, on the worst days, when you believe in yourself, when you don't believe in yourself. Someone who, like, even if your launch absolutely flops or you have the biggest cash day yet, they are there to promise and show up to guide you as the best version of themselves. And so, energetically, what's happening too is in these moments when we're investing, it isn't just what you get, it's also who you become in the process. Like there was something that switched for me when I made that investment and when I decided that I would pay in full and that this is what I was going to do and I was all in and I was completely committed and I was going to find a way to pay my coach. Like I was going to find a way to do it and I did. And those, like the clients in my world that have done that time and time again, and I typically don't hear about it until afterwards. I don't know about the situation. And sometimes I do, right? And this is why, like, so many of us, the traditional way of thinking is like, if someone's telling me that they don't have the money, like how can I continue to sell to them? Right? But it's like regardless of where somebody is at, you see them as the biggest version of themselves. Imagine if my first mentor, which I didn't tell her this, but it was like the last bit of my savings. Imagine if she was like, "Oh no, I can't work with you because of that." Right? I would not be here today with a $1 million business. When you're working with somebody, this is someone who sees you as the biggest version of yourself. This is someone who's committed to seeing you as the biggest version of yourself, even if the results aren't there yet, even if you're having a slow season in your business, even if something comes apart in your personal life. They're not like, oh, yeah, you're right, because that thing happened. There's no way you can be successful. It's like, no, okay, we'll process that. We move on from it, but you're still going to be this biggest version of you because that's how I see you as, right? That is mentorship. And especially when it comes to long-term mentorship, like pretty much all of my mastermind, most of my mastermind is locked in for alumni. A lot of them are locked in until this time next year or like the end of the year next year. And there's something that settles in your nervous system when you are not looking for a different coach all the time, when you're locked in with someone who knows you, who deeply loves you, who cares about you, who's here to support you in navigating your business, what works, what doesn't work, strategizing for your next launch, like someone who knows the ins and outs of your business. So, this point in the story leads us into my Magic Mind launch. So, this is the very beginning of launching the mastermind as we know it now, Magic Mind. And the first few launches of the Magic Mind cohort. So, what I did was I did 6 month cohorts at a time. Okay. At this point, there were a handful of students that had already been moving through the BAA curriculum and they'd finished it. They'd gotten to the end. They were working with clients. They were making consistent money. They had built their coaching business through going through BAA. It was a flow for them. Like they were already like clients were flowing in and it was working. Like it was, they were in a really good place in their business. So to speak, they had graduated from the BAA level, right? They had applied what they had learned. They created the offers. They put them out there. Clients were coming in. They were making money while they were sleeping. Like it was beautiful. And I was you know, connection to these clients. We were having these conversations and I just knew over time, like there had to be something next for them, right? There had to be something for them to move into. There had to be something that they entered into that came afterwards, right? So this is the lesson that I want to share here. This is the checkpoint lesson, right? And this is on the expansion of your product suite. I don't plan out my offers. Like I don't plan them all out in the beginning of the year. I don't tell myself what month or year I'm going to launch a new offer way in advance. Like I'm not someone who does that, right? I am in a true surrendered flow state. And when I feel the hit, I do it. I don't really map out like step one, I'm going to launch this, and then I'm going to launch that, and then this is what's going to happen afterwards. Like I feel into what's most right for my clients, and I feel into what I feel most drawn to. Like there's no blueprint to it. So here's the lesson is that your product suite should continue to evolve. It'll also reveal itself to you. All right. So the more we try to figure out, like, okay, well, this should be my high ticket offer, and someone is doing this for their mid ticket offer. So I should probably have a digital course in there somewhere because that's what people do. And then maybe I'll do a lower ticket thing over here. Like, don't force what you think should be done based on other people's business models. Create the offer that you want to create, run it the way that lights you up and brings excellent client results. And when it is time for your clients to expand, right? When they're ready for the next level, when they're ready for something new, consult with your higher self on how you want that to feel, how you want it to look. Give yourself time to build it out. But that next step, it essentially is like trying to take the third step without taking the first and second step, right? It's like that third step is going to be revealed to you once you take step one and then after you take step two, right? It's like it doesn't become, it's like in a video game, like there's a certain area of the land that you're in that doesn't even get unlocked after you pass a certain level, right? So this is really how I see Product Suite. It isn't just let me do what I think should be done that's going to create the most money, that's the most profitable, that I see the most people doing, that I see is the most successful based on data from other people and other businesses. It's let me build what I feel most drawn to building. And then after that, after I have the data points of bringing that offer into fruition, of working with clients, seeing their results, understanding where they are, what they want to create, then asking yourself like very clearly, what is the intuitive next step? Right? Like what feels good after, like what comes after this offer. So I planned a whole launch for my mastermind, like the very first time I was going to launch it, which was supposed to be in July of that year. It ended up being launched in October of 22. And I had just felt in my body that it wasn't time, right? And not to be confused with like the buildup of power and that feeling very overwhelming and then doubling back, like shrinking, right? It was a very aligned, not right now, not right now, not right now. So when you when an offer is coming through, it very much feels like a birthing process, right? You have to feel into the intuitive hit. And there are going to be some things that come through that are like, move on this now, right? Like this needs to be out there now. And then there are going to be some things that are like, part of it is created and part of it still needs to come through, right? Like some of it's here and some of it's ready, but not fully. This needs to be baked a little bit longer. Okay. So I like, there are times in my business where I have tons of people asking me to create something, but if it isn't a sacral hit for me, which I need to feel, even if it'll make me money, even if it's something that would go viral, I don't want volume and exposure for the sake of volume and exposure. I have built a very intimate business. I respond to every single inquiry with a customized voice note. I know all of my clients. I know where they are. I know where they are in their business. Like everything's very intimate and intentional from the start. So now that the mastermind is up and running, right? At first launch, I didn't listen to the I didn't just go forward with it during July because I felt I felt that there needed to be a little bit of space. So I remember taking that space and then launching it fully in October. And it started at 6-month cohorts, right? It would run from October to February and then it would launch again from April until September. And at the first round, it was all of the students, like all the students had pretty much graduated from BAA and they were ready to join the mastermind. So I had all these clients that I'd already known, like I'd already know. I think there was like one person or two people in there that hadn't come from BAA and just had been watching me, all right? But everyone pretty much came from existing clients from the program. The next round, I had students who were attracted to the mastermind and had jumped straight into it. And then there were still like, it was like 50-50. Like some came from BAA, some came from my world outside that had not even joined BAA. And so at this point, those were the only two options in my product suite, right? I was running the academy and then I was running the mastermind. And I would have maybe like two or three clients I was working with on a one-on-one basis. So when you're shifting from one-on-one into one-to-many, right? That's what we're going to go into inside this next checkpoint lesson and also what comes in through this. And here's the thing is you can build a very successful business doing just one-on-ones, right? This is really where you want to focus on client results, focus on client delivery. Like, what is it that you're teaching? What is your philosophy? Creating those results so that you can build and create big more and more people who want to work with you inside a group container, right? But after doing one-on-one for a certain period of time, most people are gonna want to scale your time and the amount of results that you can get your clients, right? Like one-on-ones, there's only so much you can do. There's always going to be a cap for one-on-ones. So, but teaching in one-on-ones, it's very easy. Like you can field every question. Your client gets very structured time with you. They get a time block to go over everything they need. It's very close proximity, right? They get all of their questions answered because you essentially have they have your whole undivided attention for an entire hour. So when you're moving into one-to-many, right, which is essentially like what was happening in this space, even though I had been doing BA, I had been doing the group program for a while, moving into a mastermind setting is a little bit different. So I just want to talk about that. So inside a group setting, it magnifies any issues that you might have in one-on-one, right? Times the number of people inside that group. Like you're not able to have as close of a pulse on where everybody is at, how they're doing, where they are in the material. Like there are so many things that you have to be aware of inside a group environment. So the lesson here is when you're scaling from one-to-one to one-to-many, especially inside a mastermind setting, you're also navigating the different wounds and triggers that come up. So internally, it can look like my client is getting better results than me this month. Why is this client not showing up to calls? Is everything okay? Noticing a client's copy is looking very similar to yours or someone else in the room, right? Client blowing up the chat, not taking the coaching or not integrating it, listening to what's happening on the outside, right? Being triggered by clients are triggered by you, clients might be triggered by each other. Navigating peer coaching between clients and whether that's supportive, like you want it to be respectful, you want it to be transformative, you want it to work successfully. Getting feedback from your clients on how things are going. So this is where you really learn that masterminds are mirrors. When you enter a close proximity space with your clients, everything gets brought to the surface. And sometimes you have to navigate things behind the scenes and have hard conversations with your clients, right? This is where you learn who is actually a right fit for my space. And typically we learn that the hard way, right? Unless you're in a mentorship space where you're actively being coached on this and you're building this out. But we can learn this the hard way and experience connections, relationships with clients that are clearly not a fit for that space or for you. Okay, so the lesson here is this is where you really learn to tighten up standards and boundaries for a group setting. So you want to start asking yourself, how much time do you actually want to give for support? When your clients are asking questions, what is that approach? Like, what does that look like, right? So, for example, like if I'm doing Telegram coaching with a client, they can send a 5-minute voice note max at a time, right? That's all that they can like. That really allows clients to think about like what is the question? Like what is the question and make sure it's not rambling, it's not just going on. It's literally like this is the question. Sometimes like most of the time I don't need to hear everything else that comes with it. I just need to hear a little bit of it and then I can respond, right? Or on Slack with my mastermind, I let them know like you'll typically hear a response from me within like a week, a business week, sometimes sooner. But if I had to be rushed to respond that same day, it would also create a boxed in feeling, right? And sometimes I do. Most of the time it's like within a couple days, but that gives me the spaciousness to choose rather than like it has to be a response that I give by the end of the day. That doesn't work for me, right? So this is where you set the standards. This is where you set the boundaries for your spaces and how you want your spaces to be run, especially when it comes to a group environment. Because when you're scaling from one to one to one to one to many, you aren't just teaching and mentoring more people. And this is one of the big lessons that I learned was this wasn't just a group of people that worked together for 6 months, right? You're actually creating a culture. What do you want that culture to be? You're creating intellectual property that you're going to use and teach. There's going to be a heart and a philosophy to your programs and for what they stand for and what you become known for. Like, this is the world building that I always talk about. And this is what you get to be in charge of, right? Especially as we move into one to many groups. This is something that is extremely crucial. So, one of the things that I do is I bake the culture of the program into the processes. So, for example, inside Magic Mind, we have a celebration station, right? It's a channel where you can go in, celebrate yourself, brag about your wins, take up space. And the way that I've taught them to use this space is share non-traditional wins. Like, don't just go in with a big cash month and celebrate that, and that's the only time you ever celebrate, right? I have clients who are used to going in there and saying, I got to know on a sales call, and I'm celebrating that. I had this happened in the back end. One of my clients completely copied all of my messaging from my sales page, and I'm celebrating that. Like, there are some wacky celebrations in there, and I've done that intentionally. I've taught my clients how to think about their business and be in the gain and not in the gap. Because if you're looking for the gap, you're always going to find it. You're always going to find it. But we're not always trained to think about how this is actually, like, what can we learn from this? What are we celebrating from this? What is coming of this, right? Another thing we do inside Magic Mind is the evaluations. I've created a culture of evaluations inside my business. So after launches, after sales calls, after a client says no, after a hard conversation, after a big win, whatever it is, my clients know to evaluate, right? And sometimes we'll get into coaching and I'm like, have you evaluated this yet? And they're like, no, I need to do that. It's on my list. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it after this, right? So evaluation questions framework, I have a framework on evaluations on how to do it, right? AKA, like, do it after you've processed your emotions, come from a neutral place, don't wait too long to evaluate. Like, if certain processes for a successful evaluation, because not everyone does evaluations correctly necessarily. So that's something that I teach inside my high level space, right? Another thing that's a culture baked into Magic Mind is this is where you utilize peer coaching to the max. This is where you come up and show support for one another, you show up for one another. This is something that I scan for actually starting in the application process and when someone reaches out, right? Because right now we have a culture that I've created inside the mastermind that's like when someone asks for support, multiple people are responding. They're like, you want to get on a call? Like, I can help you with this right now. Oh, you want to work on messaging? Let's do that tomorrow. Let's 10 a.m. Like, they literally just plan their own mini retreat this week, like halfway, like most of them are in LA or in the Bay. And so they did like halfway point their own retreat. I couldn't even make it out there and they just did it on their own. They went out to dinner. They each gave like one of their own little offerings. We have an astrologer, we have like a sensual embodiment coach. So she did like a sensual practice. They did like round table astrology. One of them is a fitness coach. She did like a morning workout for them. They have created, yes, they've created this on their own. And also I've baked this into the culture from the moment they step into the space because I know how to do that. I'm intentional about doing that. And so when I make big claims like there's no other mastermind in the entire world like what I've created inside Magic Mind, I know it to be a full fact. And I can say it with my whole chest because of what I've seen, what they've created, what I'm witnessing, and the results that my clients get. Okay, so you are responsible for the culture you create inside your containers. And that also pertains to how clients treat you. Are they breaking their contracts? Are they leaving? Are they not finishing their payments? Are people saying yes and then no? You are creating this culture, right? You're creating it from your own energetics. You're creating it from your own limiting beliefs. This is actually something we work on very deeply inside the mastermind as well. But that's something that you're creating, right? So when I realized this, and I realized it after this story I'm about to go into, it changed everything. So going into this launch that I'm going to talk about right now, It was my third launch of the mastermind. I had already had two successful launches. We had October until February, we had April until August. So now I was opening up another round for that October. So I opened it up for this launch. It was the end of summertime. I had done two full rounds. I was talking about it. I already had one person who'd messaged me and said, "Hey, I want to join. I'm going to pay in full." So I was like, "Perfect, amazing." I was like, "This is going to be a huge launch. I'm so excited." She paid in full. And then by the time the launch came, I had a few clients submitting their application. I remember having to turn away a couple who weren't a good fit. I do that not as much anymore because my messaging is so clear, but I've had to do that several times. People who just aren't a good fit for the container, what they're looking for doesn't align, or they're not at the stage of their business to where that would be a good fit for them. And then I remember one person who had said yes and then couldn't make it happen. And then there were no new applications that came in during the rest of the open application period. Like I had gone through all the applications. I think a couple more came in, but then either they weren't a good fit or it just wasn't like something didn't align for them to be able to join that round. So there were also about 3 to 4 people who had told me for sure this round, I couldn't join last round, but I'm absolutely going to join this round. I'm a full fuck yes. And then every single one of those people also couldn't join as well, which is also something that happens with group containers, right? So I remember refreshing on the last day of applications, like the last day the applications were open till the very last minute, sending my emails, getting to midnight on the last day. It was a Friday. And then it hit midnight and I think it was like 12:30 and I was like, okay, I don't think anything's coming in. And I remember going to my couch to cry because I had to process my emotions. I have very big emotions. And so this is just something I've gotten really used to and I've expanded my capacity for it. And I'm very like now I can kind of process my emotions within like 10 minutes, half an hour. I'm good, can get back to what I'm doing. But at this point, I hadn't mastered that. Um, and now I've dealt with like all the family things, co-parenting, fighting, conflict, things with my daughter. Like my daughter was in the hospital for a week last year. I was still selling the entire time. I know how to process my emotions and just get right back into it. But at this point in my business, I didn't know how to do that. And it was through these lessons that I actually learned how to do that because I realized like I am not going to be someone who's going to be spending days and days and days and days feeling my feelings. Like it's just not something that I want to be doing or need to be doing because when it is something my clients know this, when it's been like days and days and days, like I'm not talking about like big, big, big extreme stuff, but like things where you're disappointed, oh, I didn't get the result I wanted. And if it's been days or like it's a hate comment, something like that, it shouldn't take days and days and days and days to process. If it's taking days and days, you're actually not processing, right? Processing doesn't take that long. So me not having known that and not having worked on it or implemented it, I felt so disappointed. I was so disheartened. I was feeling so rejected. And I remember having like the one person who was in, and I was like, oh my gosh, what am I gonna do with her? Do I tell her I'm not gonna run this round? She'd already signed up, she already paid. I was like, do I give her her money back? I was on a cohort basis, so it wasn't like I could just keep selling it afterwards. Everyone was starting and stopping at the same time, right? Now it's evergreen. You can join Magic Mind whenever you want, anytime throughout the year, and anytime you start, it just like that's when your year starts. But this was back when I was doing 6 month cohorts. So I wasn't launching again until the next year in like March for the April round. So this was again where I had to be faced with the double back or the double down. And I'm gonna talk about what happened next, but I want to stop for the lesson here and why this became a like very, very low launch with one person in. And the reason is sales entitlement. So, this is what happens when you expect an offer to sell in the way that it has always been sold, or when you're getting into this like repetition with your selling where you're not explicitly selling. So, when you're expecting people to sign up and subconsciously you're kind of like energetically letting it slide, like the effort begins to dwindle, you're not showing up as much, you're not working as hard as you did when you weren't sure if people would sign up. In the beginning, like you don't really have that with an offer. You don't know if it's going to work. You don't know if people are going to sign up. So you put in the time and energy. You will learn to fall in love with it, right? But over time, you see it's working. And what we can do is we start to pull out a little bit, right? We're like, oh, okay, it's good. It is what it is, right? So it's like it's very much like being in a relationship and you stop pursuing your partner, or your partner stops pursuing you. Like there's no spark, it's monotonous, it's routine. You're like living like roommates, right? It's just very like, yep, this is a routine. We're used to each other, we're comfortable. Don't have to go on dates, don't have to do anything, don't have to check in, don't even have to communicate, right? Like it this is really what prevents us from doing the work that's actually required. So, sales entitlement in this specific situation prevented me from going all out and explicitly selling, right? I felt like I was in a state where it was like people had already known about it. I've talked about it. People have already heard about it. They're just gonna sign up for it, right? I've repeated myself so many times already. And this is really something that had created the lower numbers of sales and yeah, applications, but like mainly sales, right? This was a really big mistake. And here's why. People are finding you all the time, right? And people are inundated with tons of messaging, like marketing on a daily basis from every single direction. And when you put content out, expect it to go to like 2% of your audience, right? Not every single person is going to see every single one of your posts. I remember there was a year where I worked with a ice skating coach. I'd hired her privately and we're working together every single Friday. So every single Friday, I would post a video of my progress, what I was learning in ice skating, like a trick that I had mastered, something that I wanted to celebrate. I would post about it like every single week. And not only that, I would go in and practice on my days off. I was like serious. I wanted, like, I loved this hobby. I enjoyed it. I worked with this private coach for an entire year. And there was someone who would watch my stories. She's actually a friend of mine. And she was like, I remember one time we were talking about it, and then we were talking about ice skating, and she was like, "Wait, what do you mean? You do ice skating? I've never seen you talk about it." I was like, "Hello? I've literally been posting about this every single week. You just cannot expect people to, because here's what's happening. In our brains, we are circling the offers, the clients, the transformation. Like it is on repeat in our heads. It's something that we have created and we like our a lot of our life revolves around it because we're selling it, we're creating it, we're building it, we're executing it, we're delivering it, we're working with clients. Like there is like everything revolves around in our business, at least it all revolves around these offers, right? But when we bring this to social media, where there are millions, billions of other people, businesses, offers, messaging, marketing, ads. Like there is just layers and layers and layers, right? So, yes, the people who are meant to work with you, who are meant to find you, they're gonna find you. And can you also let yourself repeat yourself, explicitly sell? It doesn't just continue to happen on repeat. It only continues to happen when you go out and create it. You still have to give people a reason to invest in you. You still have to be actively seen and convert your audience. This is an ongoing thing. This is an ongoing skill. So I was thinking at this stage, having made six figures, like it like had two successful launches of this mastermind that it would just keep coming to me. And yes, is this something that happens on a certain level where clients just show up and they just like, yes, over time, yes, there is a seamless trajectory. Yes, there are people that just come into my world because of like what I built, right? But in a launch, this is also where you don't let yourself fall into the trap of entitlement because every single thing you do matters and every drop of energetics that you drop into a launch when you're selling matters, right? And I'm really glad I had this wake up call earlier in my business because it's never happened since then. And I know exactly what to do during a launch. And in fact, like I've had the biggest pre-sales before an official launch. Like I have had some of the biggest, like every single person in my mastermind had upgraded to alumni. Like there are so many things that get to happen for you on the other side of releasing entitlement. Okay. So here's what I did next in the launch so that I turned it around from one person being in to seven women being in and it being a $70,000 launch. I had never done something like this before. And when I decided to do what I was going to do next, there was a moment that I could have doubled back. I could have offered her the refund. I could have told her the container wasn't running again. And for a moment, that actually felt like the easier and safer option than what I was about to do. But I got my brain on board. I planned it out. It was crazy. Again, I'd never done something like this. But once I decided, I was all in. So just 1 week after the quote unquote failed launch, I decided to relaunch. Yes, I decided to do the entire launch all over again. I did a different event. I posted different content. I used some of the same, but I went all in. I invited people into having conversations with me. I offered sales calls, which is something I don't do, just to have deeper touch points. I opened applications again. I got extremely explicit with my messaging. This is what the mastermind in. This is what you get. This is what you sign up for. This is exactly who it's for. This is who it's not for. I really doubled down on speaking to my most aligned, like best person, the person who this was for. I got extremely clear on what I wanted inside this round, especially since I'd already run it 2 times now. I knew what to expect and I knew what kind of culture I wanted to bake into this program. I didn't want it to just be another mastermind that was out there. I didn't want it to just be a group program that what my clients joined after BAA. I wanted it to stand on its own to where even if BAA didn't exist anymore, which didn't end up happening, that it would continue to stand very well on its own, and it has. So I hard sold this mastermind. Like I went all out, I brought it home. And over time, clients who had been in and out of my world jumped in. Someone found me like not very long ago, jumped in and paid. A client who had been working with me privately said she was curious now that she was seeing more content and joined the mastermind. I was closing like a new client a day once I made that switch. And one client, she'd been through BAA. She actually filled out the entire application on accident just to see what her answers would be, and then accidentally submitted it, right? Like she accidentally submitted, she meant to fill out the application. She just wanted to see like what would her answers be. She was thinking of joining a future round. And then I had the conversation with her and she told me that it was an accident. And we had a conversation. She was like, you know what? I'm taking this as a sign I'm in. And she also paid in full. So I can't make this up. Literally within like a week, I relaunched it. I had one person in, and then it turned into seven people who were in. It ended up being $70,000. And I literally like I can't make this up if I tried. And once they jumped in, they started to see their results explode because I had this moment of the mastermind might not run, people aren't signing up for it. It forced me to double down on the culture I was creating, the mastermind I was creating, the world that I was building, and what I wanted to be known for. So literally within jumping in, like one of my clients was just finishing up celebrating a $200,000 year. Another client had celebrated like back-to-back five-figure months. One of them came in with a brand new course that was not selling, and then she sold $13,000 in new sales a month after joining the mastermind. One of them was feeling iffy about her business when she joined the mastermind, and she literally popped out with like multiple renewals and a $22,000 month. This like it was insane. It was like there was so much that was happening because of the energy that I was pouring into the space that I knew I wanted to create in the long-term culture of the mastermind. By the way, if you're interested in joining the mastermind, you can DM me Magic Mind for more information. This is really a close proximity inner circle space for heart-centered leaders, visionary CEOs who want the close proximity, want the high touch mentorship, meaning like you get multiple touch points from me, a Slack space where I respond to everything, 2 to 3 calls a month, in-person events, access to all my programs. Like it truly is a crazy, insane experience. So after that, I had like renewed this relationship with the mastermind. I did end up switching the mastermind from cohorts into an evergreen model. I felt like that would support people jumping into this space, being able to jump in anytime throughout the year, not having to wait for specific launches, right? So that's what happened shortly around that time. I hit the $1 million milestone, and this mainly came from what I'd built through BAA, some one-on-ones, as well as, of course, the mastermind. So had a big celebration for that. And then that leads me into expanding the product suite and outgrowing offers. So this was around the time where I was selling BAA, I was selling Magic Mind, and I was creating these mini courses throughout as well. And because of that, like renewed launch of the mastermind, what I really wanted it to be, the culture, etc., I started to really lean deeper into what I wanted to create inside my business. And I got the hit that it was time to let go of BAA. So, this is the checkpoint lesson. You're going to get to a point where what you're teaching, which once used to be this big 10x leap, becomes more of a 2x because you're not that same person anymore. You've integrated it, you are up leveling, you are growing, and you've outgrown what used to be a really big step. Now, it is hard to let go of something that is actively making you money, especially if it's one of your main signature offers and it's where most of your clients get funneled into, right? Like outside of Magic Mind, which was my high level close proximity space, BAA, this course, this program was the only offer that didn't have an application screening process. Like people could check out and be a part of it instantaneously. I had nearly 100 coaches going through this program. And I loved like it was working and people were signing every single time I launched. I had like 5, 6, 7 people who were jumping in. I launched it like consistently. There was like almost every single month I was doing a launch for BAA, right? Like I just gotten so used to launching it and it was evergreen at this point. You could join in anytime, but I would do like promos for it. And I did that like pretty much once a month, right? So I had people jumping, like a handful of people every single time. And it was like it was the money maker, right? So this offer alone too, like people were quitting their jobs. I had gone through my own relationship, learning to love it, teaching it, upgrading the lessons, which I talked about in call number 2. Clients were becoming well known in their field and then attributing their success to me from this program. Some of my clients were making 6 figures and beyond in their business. One of my clients, I remember, told me that she had had a $500,000 year, and we did a podcast episode together. She had just had like a $50,000 month, and she was like, I am so grateful for you. Thank you. Like, you were my first business coach. And I was so proud of what I created. And that's why I wrestled with it for such a long time. However, when you don't listen to your intuition, right? Because what our brain wants to do is like, wait, this doesn't make sense. This is not practical. This is not logical. This is making money. Clients are getting results. Why would you let go of an offer like that, right? The brain is seeking for some type of safety, some type of logic, because it doesn't make sense. So, what happens though when you're not listening to your intuition, when it's not caught, it gets like it festers into resentment, right? And it starts feeling more and more and more unaligned. Sometimes you don't, like, sometimes your brain just isn't going to have the answers that it wants to have. When we're making a big decision, when we're taking a big leap, when something big is happening, our brain is sometimes just not going to have the answers that is going to make it feel comfortable to move forward. This is where you tap into an insane level of delusion and courage and bravery instead, right? Like over what you would experience um, via logic in the brain, right? So eventually I wrestled, and I sat with it. I spoke to my intuition. I had multiple conversations with the spirit of my business, and I knew it was time to be released. So I got the intuitive hit. At this point, it was screaming at me. And I did it. I released it. I sent out the email. One of the big things I was doing inside BAA, I was still leading these live calls. So even though everyone still got access to it, and I was still gonna sell it, like I was still gonna sell it in the back end, people still join the offer. I just wasn't gonna be doing these live. I wasn't gonna be running it live. It wasn't gonna be a live component that was evergreen all the time. It was like everyone who was in it got lifetime access to it. And I also transitioned everyone into an all access pass program as well. So at this point, some clients were getting upset. They were like, I had to speak to them about it. I had to let them know what was coming. Some of them weren't like they just weren't clear on what was coming, or they didn't understand why I was doing this. And I was at a point at that point where I didn't have the perfect answer for them. I remember having these conversations where they'd be like, why are you doing this, like what's going on? And my answer would literally be, I am listening to the spirit of my business. I'm listening to my intuition. I'm listening to what's coming through, and I'm trusting it. Right. And I remember like being so anxious. I remember being so worried that they were going to be upset. And some of them were, and we had conversations around it. But I remember just like remembering that I didn't have this logical, clear reason that really like tied a bow on why I was wrapping up this offer. I didn't even in the email, like when I was closing it up and I was telling everyone how much I loved them and how much I loved this offer and how much I poured everything into it, and they still get access to it no matter what. But I just wasn't going to be teaching it live continuously. Like I didn't have the perfect answer for them. So the lesson here is feel into your business, feel into what your offer needs. Like I knew enough about listening to my intuition at that point that was like, if I didn't listen, I knew that it was just going to get like something was going to get worse. I didn't know what that was going to look like. I didn't know what that was going to be, but I just knew that it wasn't going to be good for me or my business if I kept doing what I was doing, knowing it wasn't in alignment, right? So at this point, I had enough in my reserves to know if I didn't have any new sales coming in for a bit, I'd be okay. Like it wouldn't be great, but I would be okay. I'd be fine. Right. And I knew that BAA was still going to be a program that I wanted to sell, just not like a main offer in the product suite, right? So I went into a season where there weren't tons of new sales, and I leaned into a bit of a silent period with my business where I was really getting clear on what I wanted my business to feel like moving forward. Magic Mind was doing really well, and the offer itself was doing really well. Like that was actually like what I was coasting on, was like recurring revenue from the mastermind. But in terms of a signature offer, especially in the way that I had been taught in the past, where I'd follow the rules of building a signature offer and a signature digital program, I knew that something had to shift, and I wasn't sure exactly what that was going to look like. Like I didn't know what was coming next. Like I had replaced BAA with like this all access pass that I had given to the clients that were already inside BAA, just so they had something to transition into, right? But I also knew very quickly that the all access pass wasn't going to be like a core signature piece of my product suite. I didn't continue to sell it. I wasn't selling it publicly. It was more so something that I had just given to my clients. And I knew that like almost as soon as I like launched it, I was like, oh yeah, this is going to be something that I continue to create. Everyone gets all access to it. I was running coaching calls, right? And that worked for me, but I knew it just wasn't going to be something that I was publicly going to be adding to my product suite in the long run. Right. And so during this time, it was like a moment of like putting my head down, really considering like what I was doing. I was also actually during this time starting to deepen my intuition, starting to open up a deeper channel to my higher self. And I was starting to work with like really work on this through different different programs with a mentor that I'd already been working with, and really deepening my relationship to my purpose and what I wanted to build. This is around the time to where I was creating like your worldwide movement. Some of you were a part of that. Um, and really talking about world building inside my space. And then I remember ending the year in Japan and China, where I'd reconnected with my ancestors and my power. And all of this really brought like a reigniting force within me to really create the legacy I wanted to create. So we're going to go more into that on Thursday, but that's what brought the Chosen One Mastermind, which came out earlier this year, your worldwide movement, your prophecy year, like really building this connection to like legacy work that I felt had always been a part of my brand, but just not in this way, right? So I deepened the connection to my philosophies, my delivery, my artistry, my work, and that really leads us into what is coming on Thursday. And so I will be going live on Instagram to share the reveal because I want it to live on Instagram, but I'll also open up the Zoom call as well if you want to join through Zoom. Um, but this is really the point where I knew everything had kind of come to this point, right? Where everything I'd gone through, the trials with BAA, the mastermind, reconnecting to my roots and also connecting to the future of what I wanted my business to look like and feel like. I felt like everything was starting to unfold. And there are sometimes these moments in our business where like we can't ever expect our business to be something that just continues to go up and up and up and up and up and up and up. Like that doesn't happen in any industry, in any business. If anyone tells you that that's all that's happening in their business, like they're lying through their teeth. Okay. I'm just going to tell you that right now. Nobody's business, like, yes, of course, over time, cumulatively, like your revenue is going to go up, but it also, like, you zoom out and it looks like this. When you zoom in, it's like this, right? It's like, okay, okay, up and then, okay, down, down, up, down. And then over time, you learn like it doesn't need to be as big of like a down, like a plummet, right? You can learn to create very sustainable monthly recurring revenue. You can create very stable sales in your business. And that is something that's a skill that we get to learn, but in any business, right? No matter how much you're making, even if someone's making $1 million a month, there are going to be some months that are like, oh, it was 500K or it was 700K or it was 950K or whatever, right? Like it's never just going up and up and up and up and up and up and up. It might for a period, but there's always going to be waves, right? There's always going to be ebbs and flows. And so what I was learning during this period was sometimes there are seasons in your business where you are just like in the cocoon is what I've called it a lot. Is you're in the cocoon, you're not actively selling, like you're not out there like launching and creating, you're just listening. You're just receiving, you're integrating, you are being guided, things are in creation process. It's kind of like when you are pregnant, you know you're going to have a baby, and once the baby comes, it's like go time. Like you got to be on, you're not going to be getting much sleep. They are going to need something every single second from you. You can't leave them alone for even a moment. But when you are pregnant and you're in like the period of like conception and then like the baby is being formed, you can't do that much. You just have to sit and let it be created. And I've had these times in my business, and for some reason, they've always been around like fall and winter. And that's worked very well because I normally take off like December, my birthday's in November. Like it's worked out for me, right? But it can happen anytime throughout the year. So the lesson here is when you're being called into a season where you are really being asked to go inward, to listen, to receive, to be in a state where you are being guided into your next step. Let it happen. Because here's the thing is if you don't let it happen, you're just going to continue, like, even if you continue making money temporarily, it's just going to end up it's just going to end up being this, like, it'll come to a head, right? It'll be like you're doing what you're doing. Yes, it might be making money. Yes, it might be what's always worked, but what got you here isn't going to be what gets you there, right? When you're going into a period of scaling, expanding, growing, like the butterfly is going, like, you know that the butterfly is eventually going to come out of the cocoon and it's going to spread its wings and it's going to be a completely different creature. You have to give yourself these periods of time to listen, to speak, right? And that doesn't have to be a long period of time. It doesn't even have to be a month, right? But there are going to be these moments where you're listening, you're reinventing. All right. And that doesn't always mean that money's going to go down. It doesn't always mean that there needs to be that you need to take a hit on your revenue or on your sales. But I do think that in the coaching industry, we have this thought that my money is just supposed to go up and up and up and up. And if I don't, even for a month, something's wrong. Right. And that's marketing. I'm not going to go too much into that. Just don't believe and don't take everything you see through marketing and messaging as the full story. That's all I'm going to say. I've seen the behind the scenes of enough businesses. I've sat at enough tables with 7 and 8 figure entrepreneurs to know that. Okay. So just keeping that in mind, knowing that there are going to be periods of your business when you release an offer, when you create a brand new offer, you're going to have to give yourself a little bit of time, right? You're going to have to expect that things are going to feel a little bit different. You're going to shift things a little bit. Things are like, they're not falling apart. They're just restructuring, especially if you're going from like one-on-ones to group, or if you're going from like group programs to launching a mastermind, or you're releasing a program, or you're pivoting your niche, you're rebranding, you're going into something else, you're adding something else to your business, something's changing, transforming. Give yourself those periods of time to be with the reinvention process. Right? It's kind of like if you bought this brand new building and you're planning to create, let's just say it's going to be, I don't know, let's just say it's going to be a restaurant. So if you're building this restaurant and you've bought the building, right? But it's literally not open for business yet. You literally have to do the remodeling. You have to bring everything in. It's like you have the business there, but you're not actively selling yet. You're not there yet, right? It's literally just like in the process. It's in the cocoon. One day it's going to be open. There's going to be a huge banner that says grand opening. People are going to flood in. It's going to be amazing, right? But up until that point, and then even after then, you still have to create it and build it, right? So sometimes we have this skewed perspective of business always being good and having to top the next month and the next month and the last month, and it needs to be better and better and better. And the reality is that there are going to be points in your business where you're going to intentionally pull out and leave money on the table. There are going to be times where you intentionally are not selling. You're closing up the doors, right? Like you will learn, this is what I teach my mastermind, you will learn how to turn on and turn off the faucet to sales. You're going to build a skill set to where when you turn it on, you know that sales are going to come in, you know how to sell, you know how to attract clients, you know how to build up your revenue. And then you're also going to have time periods where you turn it off or you just allow yourself to step away for a moment. Those are going to be skill sets that you build as a CEO, as a conscious leader inside your business. Okay. So this is a lot of what I went through was the reinvention process. And then what that ended up creating was $108,000 in 60 days. So that was happening December and January of this year. And everything that is going to happen from here on out really leads into the reveal of the rebrand, which I'm going into on Thursday. So that's where I'm going to stop here. This is the last reminder to DM me about the membership, which is going to be launched on Thursday, but the price for the membership is going to go up after the launch on the 4th. So make sure you DM me for details to jump in right now. The membership is a charging portal. It is a broadcast channel for trainings, strategic trainings, riffs, activations behind the scenes. Micro programs like mini courses that I'm creating are all going to be accessed inside this membership. And I am like the strategic trainings that I'm already building out, I'm planning and about to be dropping inside the space. These are very specific, actionable, take action right away types of trainings. Like what I would do if I wanted to sign a pay in full client this week, right? Filling up your next group coaching launch, exactly what you would do, messaging to call in a higher level client, closing the gap between your clients who are kind of lukewarm and not quite ready to take the plunge and turning them into clients that are like, okay, I'm ready now, take my money, let's go. Right? So these are very like content, social media, sales, strategy, selling in the DMs, closing, launching, stacking monthly recurring revenue, very applicable, actionable strategies that you can take in your business and see results that week, right? So you want a place like you want essentially the closest thing to mentorship with me in your back pocket for literally a fraction of the price that it would be. This is the space to get it. And it is right now the pay in full is at 25.55. So that's actually insane. And there's a 4-month payment plan. Okay. So that's the membership. You get access to activations, riffs from me. If you're someone who resonates with the way that I speak and channel, my audio trainings, my riffs, as well as strategic trainings behind the scenes of my business, that's like really the membership is really going to be like a sacred inner circle where you hear like personal life, business, behind the scenes, sales trainings, bringing you back to yourself, listening and creating a relationship between you and your higher self so you know what's optimal and a fit for you in your business versus just looking at what other people are doing. This isn't a membership where I'm just throwing a bunch of strategies for you to go and implement. You're also learning how to build your own world. You are learning how to discern what's optimal for you and your business and really listen to your intuition. Okay, so that is the membership. You can DM me membership for details on that. Again, the price is going to be going up after Thursday. So if you jump in before then, you still get access to the early bird pricing, which brings it down a little bit. And there are some bonuses in there as well. So if you've reached out to me, you already know I've sent voice notes on it. If you haven't messaged me, make sure you message me. And other than that, I will see you on Thursday, day 4, where we will be doing the full reveal on Instagram Live as well as on Zoom. And I'll see you then.